Video Clips on Blindness Tips, a series of video demonstrations for daily living skills for the blind and visually impaired, presented in conjunction with the Washington State School for the Blind. The following tip features Kim Johnson, art instructor at the Washington State School for the Blind. Kim and WSSB student Aubrey demonstrate a sculpture project using empty water bottles that works well for blind or visually impaired people.
To start this project, there's a lot of household items that will be in use. The main project that you may, or medium that you'll need to go out and get is Model Magic, Crayola Model Magic. It can be found at Fred Meyer or any arts and crafts store, Michael's. It comes in different colors or just plain white. The one that we're using today is a yellow-green, and that's one of the things you'll need. Another item that's going to be on our list is just a plastic container. It can be any size. It can be larger or smaller, whichever you choose to use. Another item, sand, rock, that will be used to fill into the plastic container to give it some weight so it doesn't tip over. Fabrics, any kind of fabric, felt, anything you have around the house, old clothes, just scraps. Glue, can be a hot glue gun if you have one, or just regular Elmer's glue. A glue stick will work. You don't have to decorate it with clothes, your creature. You could just leave it without, or just part way, whichever you want to do. And paint, in case you use the white Model Magic, you might want to paint your creature afterwards. And any sort of decorations that you want to use, pipe cleaners, rocks, feathers, buttons, found objects, anything that you might want to incorporate. Bells for sound if you want something that's a little more auditory. This creature itself actually makes a sound when it's done. This one has bells on its ears. And so those are the things that you'll need to get started with. Aubrey has already designed her creature using a sketch, if you want to hold that up. Or
what I did was I took a front sort of sketch of my head, and then I also did a side view sketch of my head. And depending on your creature, you might want to use a tail or you might not want a tail. It just depends on what your creature is. It can be anything at all.
Aubrey sketches in black and white. If you wanted your son or student or anyone to get a little more detailed so that they'll know if you're using the white Model Magic and you want to go back and paint it, we would have them color in the sketch so they know exactly what colors they're going to use. If you're working with a totally blind student who cannot see the sketch or are going to be using paper and pencil to make their sketch, that you can just use regular modeling clay. Crayola makes some. They could, or Play-Doh, I guess. Play-Doh would be a little soft to work with, but it's just going to give them an idea of the concept of manipulating this clay into an object or head shape, as opposed to just using the Model Magic, which can dry. You don't want to keep using it over and over. Plus, this works with your fine motor and gross motor and finger strength. So the first thing that we do, now that we've got the sketch, is Aubrey's going to take her container and fill it with sand. We just have a container full of sand. She can fill that up as much as she wants. This works with the student for just getting the idea of pouring. This ties into DLS, getting that sand into a narrow container. Sometimes that can be difficult. If you have a student that maybe needs a funnel, you can put a funnel in there. If you have rocks, they could be dropping the rocks in. We've just taken a cup and squeezed it so it makes a pretty good funnel. It can be smaller or larger depending on the bottle size. You still want to fill that up so it's pretty heavy. What you're doing is making the creature's head on top of that lid, and we don't want them tippy. The next step, Aubrey's going to go ahead and open up the Model Magic clay and pull some out and start to sculpt the head and the other features that she's going to add to her creature. Now the nice thing about this clay is that it's unlike using some other clays, it's very soft, it's smooth, it's got a nice texture to work with. It doesn't get your students' hands dirty, so I think students like working with it. If your student is working on one of these pieces and they're adding the head, once they're done sculpting that, they can add buttons or pipe cleaners that go directly into the clay. And if you want to make sure you kind of push them in, because it does kind of fluff back up. Then if you wanted to go back in and paint this and add other details, you just pop these right out before it dries, so that when they go to paint over the clay, they won't be painting over the buttons or the pipe cleaners. Then you can just pop them back in, glue them back in with a little bit of glue when they're done. How are you going to attach that?
What you would probably do, depending on where you wanted your head, you would probably just take the base of the head and sort of sink it down into the bottle to where the head is sort of wrapped around, and then what you would do is you would take more modeling clay and you would wrap it around to give it a firmer base. And that's what I did. I'm sort of wrapping more clay around and that, and it'll stay. After it dries, this thing is very good at staying.
We're going to dress our creature. Now, if you wanted to stop here, you could, but what we do is we add arms, and what Aubrey is talking about, so she's going to sculpt the claws because she's making a dragon, and some feet, and a tail, a small piece of a tail. So she'll sculpt the arms, the hands and the feet, and any other things she wants to add. And then we'll cut the fabric. You could use like any kind of fabric. It could be flannel. It can be, what we have are just fabric scraps. These are samples from an upholstery store. So Aubrey has now sculpted the arms, the legs, and the tail, and she's put them on right on the plastic bottle before she is going to cover it with fabric, so she has an idea, and the arms are sculpted to the contour of the bottle, so that when we put the fabric on, they'll be, she'll know how they'll easily attach to the fabric. And so she's got that set the way she wants it. And then Aubrey, you can take those off, and we will start with the fabric. You can use Elmer's glue to glue this on. With Elmer's glue, it's going to take a little bit longer to dry, and if you're worried about the Elmer's glue just sort of sliding, the whole piece sort of sliding off, you could just take some masking tape or any sort of tape and just tape it up so it's kind of tight while it dries. Also, if you have a hot glue gun and you want to speed the process up, that's another way to do it. I'm going to help Audrey by holding this so she can get the tape on, and so she'll tape that so it doesn't peel right off, and we'll let it dry. Aubrey has finished, the glue is dried and the fabric, and she's attached the arms and legs and tail to the position that she wanted them. At this point then, if you wanted to, you could go on to add any sort of details. Some students like to add necklaces or buttons down the front or any sort of accessories that you'd want to add, pipe cleaners. The students can name their creature if they wanted to name them. We've done things where after they got done, they wrote what was called a creature feature, which talked about what the creature, where it was from, what kind of hobbies it had, where it lived, what's its favorite food. So they can incorporate a writing piece as well if you wanted to do that, or a poem or any other thing to kind of describe, because I think people see these and they kind of wonder, what was that student thinking? What was their creative process? Why did they choose the materials and the things that they did? And it just really brings the whole thing together if you wanted to add that component or not. So we just like to add that this project is one that can be done with elementary, middle school, and high school. And it's a great, fun project that kids can really be creative with.
More video clips for blindness tips are available from the Washington State School for the Blind at wssb.wa.gov.